Hi there, welcome and thank you for choosing to watch my session. I'm Linda Farrell. I live in Melbourne, Australia, but I was born in South Africa and I also grew up there. My session will give you some pointers on how to do South African research, but more importantly, I will leave you with ideas on where to get help and support to further your research, since the 20 minutes is just enough for basic information. I will start my session today by giving you some background information on South Africa. I will discuss a few very helpful Facebook groups. I will discuss the South African National Archives and more specifically around the search engine. I will discuss the collections on FamilySearch. I will move into talking about DNA, but more specifically the issues around South African research. Then I will conclude my session by listing a few other resources worth mentioning. This slide contains basic information needed for South African research. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a map of the provinces of South Africa as they came into being in 1910. With the unification of the Cape Colony, the Orange River Colony, the Natal Colony, and Transvaal. These borders stayed the same until significant changes in 1994. The original provinces are important for our research since the collections on FamilySearch, as well as the depots of the National Archives, are based on these provinces. On the right-hand side, I have included a table of the dates of commencement of civil registrations in the different provinces. This will give you some clarity on what can reasonably be found either in the archives or online. I just have to mention that birth registrations are almost impossible to find, and we tend to use, among other things, also baptisms. An important factor in our research is our death notices. So the death notices are part of the probate files, so they're separate from civil death registrations. The death notices contain a wealth of information and even parents' names in most cases. Then lastly, I just have to mention the 13-digit identity number system. It was introduced in the 1970s and it can be used to request documents from Home Affairs such as birth certificates and death certificates. Facebook. There are quite a few groups around on South African research, specifically on specific surnames. But the three groups here are really worth joining if you are doing any South African research. So the first group is South African Genealogy. This is a very helpful group of people who jump in to help wherever they can. The admin team of 3 aims to keep the group informal. We are trying to be not too restrictive so that conversation can keep flowing, but people are very, very respectful there. So it is a very helpful environment and you will get a lot of support in that group. The second group evolved or grew out of the first group. We were encountering more and more DNA specific questions as the first group, South African Genealogy, grew. I decided to create the new group to accommodate DNA questions specifically. You are more than welcome to join that group as well, and that is actually the only group for DNA research in South Africa. The third group I want to mention is indexing South African records on FamilySearch. The group is run by a handful of very knowledgeable indexers. They provide training and general indexing support. So please join if you are currently indexing South African records or if you ever want to index South African records. I just want to make these 2 points. So whenever you are asked some questions, when you request to join a group, please answer those questions. A lot of groups have automatic declines, so if questions aren't answered, you will be declined, no matter who you are, or your profile isn't even checked. So please answer those questions. Then as soon as you've joined, read through the pinned posts and the announcement section of all groups. So in most groups, those sections, the pinned post and the announcement section, will contain the questions most often asked. It would also contain links to files or extra resources. So it's well worth your time to go through that pinned post and the announcement section. The South African National Archives. This session will focus on the search engine of the South African National Archives and not on the physical archives. The physical archives contain a lot more than what is indexed in the search engine. So if you are able to visit the archives physically, you will be able to find more information. But for my intent here is just to focus on the search engine. So the search engine mentioned in the first point is an old search engine. It is extremely powerful once you get your head around it, but it is not intuitive. So it is really worth working through the help section of the search engine. There's also a new search engine under development. Unfortunately, it's not as powerful. You may also find that the one is offline and you then use the other one. So it is important to get to know the old one as well. So I've spoken about death notices earlier, and this is where you'll be able to find some of those death notices. It is just worth mentioning that the search engine is just an index, and once you've found a document, it may be online on FamilySearch, or otherwise you may need to order it online, and I'll go into more detail a little bit later on the slide. So the most important depots in your search results will be KAB, which is the Cape Town Archives, the physical Cape Town Archives. The search engine contained death notice from 1834 to 1959. The next depot is TAB. This is the Pretoria one. The search engine contains indexed death notice up to 1976. VAB is the Bloemfontein one, and it contains death notices up to 1956. Then NAB is the Pietermaritzburg Archives, and it contains death notices up to 1971. You can also use, during the search, you can pick to search from one of these archives, depots, or you can use RSA option, which will search all depots. It's just important to note that I've only mentioned death notices here, but there's a lot of other documents that will come up with the search, such as divorces. You will be able to order them. So some collections are available on FamilySearch, and I have a link there for you to download a list that I have compiled with the help of some other people, and I've mentioned them in the document. Then for all depots and databases, except KAB, which is Cape Town, the documents can be ordered through eGGSA if it's not available on FamilySearch. So this is the link to where there's a link to where you can order these documents. For the depot or database KAB, you can order what is not available from a private researcher. I usually use Heather McAllister. She also covers the other depots, but I tend to go to eGGSA for the other depots and then to Heather for KAB. You've got Heather's details there. The way it works is that someone needs to go out to the archives to take photos of those documents, and you will then receive photos. South African records on FamilySearch. We are very fortunate to have many of our South African records freely available on FamilySearch. It is the single most useful source for South African records. It is therefore important to note that only a small percentage of our records have been indexed, and browsing collections is a necessity. This slide just contains a brief explanation of the state of the records on FamilySearch. So in point 1, we've got records that are not digitized at all. You'll see a little icon of a film next to it. If you've got any time to do indexing, please join the Facebook group I've mentioned in one of the previous slides so that we can get more of these records indexed. Then we've got collections that are digitized from microfilms but not yet indexed or transcribed. You can search the catalog on FamilySearch to find these, but I've also generated a list of collections, and you can download the list in the link in point 2. The third category is the collections that I index or transcribe. You can search for these records on FamilySearch, but it is just worth knowing that the icon that appears next to them might appear even if the collection is not fully indexed, so browsing may still be necessary. Then the last point is collections that are only available at an affiliated family history center. So most of our South African records are in category 1 and 2 at the moment, and therefore, once again, if you can index, please join the group and index some South African records. I also would like to say, please always sign into FamilySearch. You may find that you see the icon in point 4 next to a collection, but once you've signed in, it changes to the camera 1 in point 2, and it is actually available. South African DNA testing is in a way very unique, and solving mysteries poses a few challenges. The first one is that the number of South Africans who have tested is still relatively small, but it is increasing. We're also looking at a few endogamous populations in South Africa, which makes the whole research part a little bit harder. Lastly, not all companies ship to South Africa, so that makes a difference to the number of people in the databases. Now, if we look at MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA, they do mail to South Africa. The process can take a long time due to postal issues. My last kit took the whole process took between 8 and 9 months to complete. But MyHeritage raw data can be uploaded to Family Tree DNA and vice versa, and both can be uploaded to JetMatch. Then Be Happy to Be You is a fairly new company in South Africa. The whole process happens in South Africa from start to finish. It makes it a lot quicker. It is a bit more expensive, and another negative is that they have no database for comparison. But they do have raw data that can be uploaded to JetMatch, MyHeritage, and Family Tree DNA for comparison. It is worth using them if you are in a hurry to get your results. Then Ancestry and 23andMe unfortunately do not mail to South Africa, but if you can and know how to use a mailing service in the US to get the test to you, it is worth using them. Once again, the postal issues may have an influence on the timeline, and as you probably know, raw data can be uploaded to JetMatch, MyHeritage, and Family Tree DNA for comparison. If you have to pick one of the two, use Ancestry, which has a bigger South African presence in their database. This is a diagram I have created just to make the decision easier on where to test. It doesn't include the latest company that are in South Africa. This is just around the bigger companies. So you basically start at the start one and ask yourself, do you want to do an autosomal test? If the answer is no, then of course test your Y-DNA or mtDNA at Family Tree DNA. If yes, you do want to do an autosomal test, ask yourself the question, is it an elderly person and the spit test may be a problem, or you want to do more tests in future and save the DNA? If the answer is yes, then test it family DNA, the family finder test, and upload to MyHeritage and GETmatch. If it's not an elderly person and the spit test is not a problem, then the next question is, do you live in a country Ancestry ships to, or you have a way to get a test to you? If the answer is yes, then test it Ancestry and upload to Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage and GETmatch. If the answer is no, you can't get an Ancestry test to you, then test it Family Tree DNA, the Family Finder test, and upload to MyHeritage and GETmatch. Once again, this does not include the South African based test, and it is worth your while looking at that one if you're in a hurry. I would like to end this session by listing some additional resources. The YouTube channel of Matthew Bodie contains a set of videos on how to do South African research. It's very informative. Then the Genealogical Society of South Africa, I've got the link to their website there, but I want to specifically mention their web shop. The web shop allows users to buy credits at a very low cost, and these credits can be used to access and download data from collections. They currently host 3 collections, but more will be added in future. Then EGGSA. EGGSA is the online branch of the Genealogical Society of South Africa, and it's also the organization I've mentioned in the one of the previous slides, where you order archive documents. But their website has a search engine and contains church register transcript. It contains thousands of gravestone photos and some newspaper extracts. Then I also want to mention an e-book shop, and please visit their freebie section for free ebooks. A private researcher, Vida McLaren, has a group on Facebook called iSearch. She has a prize list there, and she will create basic trees and do specific research. Then lastly, I want to mention Gen Database. Gen Database is a part subscription, part free site. It's strong on death and marriage information from the population register of living individuals after 1980. The data is up to date up to 2006. It doesn't contain any source documents and basically just information only. When a person is deceased, you will be able to find their 13-digit identity number, which you can then use, like I've said in one of my previous slides, to order documents from Home Affairs. Thank you for watching. For more great content, please check out the RootsTech page, and especially the presentations on South African research by Sue McNally. And I will leave you with the most important point, and that is to please join the Facebook groups mentioned for help and support. You will find many resources there, and you will find a great bunch of people that are more than willing to help you. Goodbye.